Hello. Today I'm going to be demonstrating how to make a few simple, fun clay projects that you could use around your house or also make for really nice small presents for people, personal handmade presents. So using white clay today, I have some tools. I have a sponge. Anytime I use the sponge, I really want to get most of the water out of it and just use a barely damp sponge. I have name tags, so if you're in a class and we need to keep track of whose clay is who, we want to make sure we put our names on those first before our hands are messy. And then I have some cookie cutters, right? Star, I have a bear here that I'm going to use as examples, a little rolling pin. I have a texture plate, so you can kind of see this has some neat designs on it. These are rubbery, so they're really easy to press into the clay and come back off. And then I also have some letters that are used actually for stamping or embossing, but they work pretty well for the clay as well. You just gotta be careful not to get them clogged up. So first I'm going to show you how you can make either ornaments. Oh, of course I also have my little cutting tools and a little toothpick so I can slip and score if needed. So I'm going to get myself a smaller, more workable size piece of clay here, and I'm going to show you how you could make some ornaments or magnets or just a little something that you could hang on the wall for decoration. Whenever I'm rolling my clay out, I'm going to pick it up, flip it over. There's a wrinkle in my fabric right there. There we go. And then roll it in another direction. I want to make sure I have at least one piece that's big enough for my larger cookie cutter. And we don't want this to be super thick, but we also don't want it to get too thin. So we really don't want it to be thinner than 1/8 of an inch. So this is pretty good here. At the very thickest, you could have a 1/2 inch, but that's really too much. A 1/4 is pretty good. So for me, this is between a 1/4 and a 1/2 if I look at my fingers. Most of my students, their fingers are much smaller than mine. So as long as your clay is about as thick as one of your fingers or a little bit thicker, then you're in good shape. Like I said, my fingers are bigger, so it's a little bit different. Okay, so I want to try and have a nice smooth surface. So I'm going to just take my sponge and just brush it over there. You don't have to do this. This is just because I want to have a nice surface before I start to impress some of these designs. So first of all, I'm actually going to, I like the 4 different designs that are in this one. I'm going to focus on these 3, and I'm going to just put that on top of my clay. And now I need to roll that pattern as one straight roll, okay? You can, it's not going to hurt if you go over it, but you're going to be making your clay a little bit thinner as you do this. You want to make sure that that texture plate has gone into your clay though and really made an impression. So now I can pick that up and I'm going to cut it out and then hold it up for you. So I am cutting right along where the edge of that texture is, and I'm making sure that my cutting tool is going the whole way down to the table so that I could just pull my other clay away or pick this piece up. So you can see, right, how the texture got pressed into that clay. And so from here, I could keep this all one piece, but it's kind of big, and there's really separate pictures on here, so I went ahead and cut my clay again, and now I have like this one small. All right, so now I have this neat little rectangle with that design on it. If I want it to just be a magnet, I can leave it just like this. Because after it goes through the kiln and gets glazed or painted, I'll just glue a magnet to the back. If I want it to be an ornament or something that I can hang while it's still wet, I'm going to take my tool It's my little wooden tool. And I'm going to poke a hole that goes the whole way through. So obviously I wouldn't want to go through the center of it because I would mess up my picture, right? And also it wouldn't hang very well. But I do need to make sure that I go the whole way through. This hole is going to shrink, right? So it's going to get smaller. So you want to make sure you go ahead and have a large enough hole. And this clay in the back doesn't look very nice. So I'm just going to take my finger. Also, it was get very, very sharp, right? After it was fired. So I'm just taking my finger. My clay is very moist clay. I covered that hole up just a tiny bit, so I just go in there and whoop, fix it. So now I have a nice, even hole. And this will make a really cool ornament. You could use it as a tag on the outside of a gift if you were wrapping it up. So that's just one, right? Easy little thing we could make. If I was going to use my bear cookie cutter, I could go ahead and just whoop, press it down into my clay that I already have rolled out, making sure it goes the whole way to the bottom. I'm going to take my little wooden tool again. It's like my super handy tool. If I only got to pick one, I would probably pick this one. Can do so much with it. And to make sure that I went the whole way down, I can actually go ahead and just, I made a little slit from where the cookie cutter was to the edge of the clay, and you can see I can just peel this clay, just round it off. I don't want to mangle it up because I still have more good clay that I could make things with. So these cookie cutters are nice because they're hollow, so I can push my guy back out. Now I could leave him, again, just like this. I'm definitely going to poke a hole in the top of this one because I want him to be an ornament. And at this point, I could build a face on top of him, I could carve a face in him, or I could leave him just like this for when I glaze it or paint it. I could decorate it then. If I wanted to put, say, a little nose on him, anytime we attach pieces of clay, we absolutely have to slip and score. I cannot just stick this little nose that I made on there and expect things to work out okay. It seems kind of stuck now, but in the kiln it's gonna not stay stuck, and then you're not gonna have a nose on your little bear anymore. So anytime we're joining parts, I think my nose is a little bit big, I'm gonna make it a tiny bit smaller. When we're joining parts or we're adding something to a clay piece, you have to slip and score. And if you don't already know what that means, so although it's called slip and score, you actually do the scoring first. So I can figure out where exactly do I want my little bear nose. I've got that figured out. And now on the back of it, where it's going to attach to the bear, I need to score it. It's actually a little bit easier with a toothpick. I lost my toothpick. So you can do it with the wooden tool. Like I said, a toothpick works a little bit better. But so I'm mangling up my clay, right? See, I messed it up, and this is where it's going to attach. So I'm going to do the same thing where I want that nose to go onto my clay. I'm going to dip my finger, or if you have a paintbrush that you're using, that works pretty well. So now I have added a little bit of water to both pieces, and now I'm really going to squeeze that nose on there. So what the water does is turns the clay where you mangled it up into slip. And so that is kind of like glue for clay, right? It'll glue the one piece to the other. And all the while I'm trying not to mess my bear up too much. So his nose is pretty big, I'm okay with that. And whoops, poke into that nose just a little bit. And then I'm drawing a happy little smiley face in there. And for the eyes, I could just poke 2 holes. Inside the ears, I could also do little indentations. And in the paws, I'm just indenting it a little bit. The toes, I can make it look like he has 3 little big bear toes by pressing, again, this helpful tool. So I'm using the end that's flat and round. And so then I have this cute little bear ready to go. He's got to be a magnet, right? Or just something maybe I set on a table. If it was bigger, it could be a spoon rest. But if I want it to be an ornament, you got to leave a little bit of space, right? We don't want it to be completely empty. Not empty, sorry, but too narrow, right? Where between the hole and the edge of the clay is, or it could become very fragile and break. Again, smoothing out the clay on the back. And then I have, oops, ooh, we did a belly flap. My cute little bear that will be an ornament, so that will be glazed or painted. And last but not least, another texture plate has a different texture on it. I'm going to roll this one into my clay again. Roll, roll. I'm going to pull that texture out. And you can see, whoa, that cool texture is now in there. And my little star, there you are. Now I'm going to take my star and I'm just going to press it in like I was cutting cookies. So I have these cute little mini stars. Now, these are really almost too little to turn into ornaments, but they're going to make awesome little mini magnets that I could put on my refrigerator, right? So you could also glue thumbtacks to the back, and then they could kind of be super special tacks, right? Thumbtacks that you could put pictures on, maybe a cork board or something that you have. So cute little stars. They're not going to get a hole in them because they're almost too small, right, to be ornaments. So, and look, I can make these so quickly, right? I can make more than one. They don't use a lot of clay. And I definitely like that they have that texture in there. That's going to look a lot better when we glaze them,